Welcome to the Daily Bite with your host, Pastor Steve Andrews. The next several days of our study together are going to be really a review. We saw a few days back the construction plans, the blueprint, the design for the Tabernacle of God. These next few chapters are the people carrying that out, and we're going to see how fittingly they do. So one of the things that you might do as a family here is, well, if you did the devotional experiment that I mentioned to you on our first pass through this, and you put sticks out in your yard or something to measure and mark off the size and the dimension of the tabernacle, if they're still there, use those as you're walking through this review together. See what you can see. If not, feel free to reflect on those chapters and do it again, or do it for the first time, remembering that a cubit is 18 inches. That'll help you with just about everything you need to know for measuring. If you haven't, if you don't have the space, or you just would rather do something different, draw it. I used to love working with graphing paper, as it's easy. It's got all the little increments on it, and all you have to do is lay it out. So a lot of children like to do that kind of thing. So work together as a family and see what you can do. But for our text today, it's Exodus chapter 35. Moses assembled all the congregation of the people of Israel and said to them, "These are the things that Yahweh has commanded you to do. 6 days' work shall be done. But on the seventh day you shall have a Sabbath of solemn rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall kindle no fire in all your dwelling places on the Sabbath day." Moses said to all the congregation of the people of Israel, "This is the thing that Yahweh has commanded. Take from among you a contribution to Yahweh. Whoever is generous of heart, let him bring Yahweh's contribution: gold, silver, and bronze, blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins and goat skins, acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and stones for setting, for the ephod and for the breastpiece. Let every skillful craftsman among you come and make all that Yahweh has commanded: the tabernacle, its tent and its covering, its hooks and its frames, its bars, its pillars and its bases, the ark with its poles, the mercy seat and the veil of the screen, the table with its poles and all its utensils, and the bread of the presence, the lampstand also for the light with its utensils and its lamps, and the oil for the light, and the altar of incense with its poles, and the anointing oil and the fragrant incense, and the screen for the door, at the door of the tabernacle, the altar of the burnt offering with its grating of bronze, its poles and all its utensils, the basin and its stand, the hangings of the court, its pillars and its bases, and the screen for the gate of the court, the pegs of the tabernacle and the pegs of the court, and their cords, the finely worked garments for ministering in the holy place, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons for their service as priests." Then all the congregation of the people of Israel departed from the presence of Moses. And they came, everyone whose heart stirred him, and everyone whose spirit moved him, and brought Yahweh's contribution to be used for the tent of meeting, and for all its service, and for the holy garments. So they came, both men and women. All who were of a willing heart brought brooches and earrings and signet rings and armlets, all sorts of gold objects, every man dedicating an offering of gold to Yahweh. And everyone who possessed blue or purple or scarlet yarns, or fine twined linen, or goat's hair, or tanned ram skins or goat skins, brought them. Everyone who could make a contribution of silver or bronze brought it as Yahweh's contribution, and everyone who possessed acacia wood of any use in the work brought it. And every skillful woman spun with her hands, and they all brought what they had spun in blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen. All the women whose hearts stirred them to use their skill spun the goat's hair. And the leaders brought onyx stones and stones to be set for the ephod and for the breastpiece, and spices and oil for the light, and for the anointing oil, and for the fragrant incense, All the men and women, the people of Israel, whose heart moved them to bring anything for the work that Yahweh had commanded by Moses to be done, brought it as a free will offering to Yahweh. Then Moses said to the people of Israel, "See, Yahweh has called by name Bezalel the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and he has filled him with the Spirit of God, with skill, with intelligence, with knowledge, and with all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold and silver and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood, for work in every skilled craft. And he has inspired him to teach, both him and Aholiab the son of Ahisamach of the tribe of Dan. He has filled them with skill to do every sort of work done by an engraver, or by a designer, or by an embroiderer in blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen, or by a weaver, by any sort of workman or skilled designer." This is the word of the Lord. So again, this chapter is almost entirely a review of many things here. We have a start with a review of the Sabbath as Moses brings the people of God together so that he can instruct them all at the same time, which is interesting, right? To imagine how Moses could speak to such a large crowd. I guess we could assume a miracle that God amplified his voice for hearing, or some other sort of way, or perhaps as the crowd has gathered, Moses instructs the elders, and the elders go back to their groups of people that they oversee, and that would be the more practical way that doesn't involve a miracle. But it's something that maybe you haven't considered before. It's hard for a group that size, where the men alone number 600,000, but in total probably a couple million people, and they've gathered together. Now, the reflection of the Sabbath given to them: you work 6 days, you rest for one day. It's holy to God. You don't mess with that. In fact, even gives a stipulation there in verse 3 about an example of something that would be too much work. You can't even start a fire in your tent. Now, remember, the Sabbath is about trusting in God, that God will provide for you. God has promised to provide for you, and one of his provisions is shelter, is keeping your family warm, is keeping your family alive. And as he is directly the God of Israel, and as he is with them, and his presence is with them, yeah, you don't need to kindle your own fire. God has promised he will care for you that day, so he will care for you that day. It's a bold step of trust right there. But it is what God has called his people to. It's what he's given them. Anyone who does not follow the Sabbath is to be put to death. God reiterated that a couple of times, Moses passing it along. As we get to the next section, this contribution, this offering, this was mentioned to Moses. I can't really say, well, I guess it was commanded. It was commanded for Moses to take a free will offering. So the people are not commanded, but Moses, as the leader, is commanded to make this offering happen. And whoever wants to give can give. This is chapter 25, is where this is brought up by Yahweh. And so now in chapter 35, we're seeing this fulfilled. Whoever's generous, let him give these things. These are all the materials that have been instructed in the blueprint for building this tabernacle. So this is a collection that will establish what is needed so that the work can be done. And we're going to see a reflection of that, and not today, but coming up. For now, what we do see down when you get to verse 20, that paragraph, is that they do it, right? Whoever's heart stirs him, they made the contribution. All who are of willing heart. So it sounds like it worked just as God said. Anyone who was wanting to do so would do so. But at the same time, some of the language here makes it sound like everyone made an offering, that the whole congregation participated in this, which if true, that would be good. That would be the goal of a free will offering, is that people would freely contribute without coercion. I mean, you get the language of verse 22, every man dedicating an offering of gold. 23, everyone who possessed the different kinds of fabric. 24, everyone who could make a contribution of silver or bronze. Everyone who possessed acacia wood. So as they're going around, this is covering a lot of different people. So it's possible everybody participated. To double back real quick, verse 10 mentions every skilled craftsman, every skillful craftsman. So this is a reflection that God has given the ability to do the work to his people, and he is calling them to come. He's calling for these men to volunteer their services in constructing this holy site, this house of God. And then our last paragraph for today mentions again the two master craftsmen, the two guys who are going to lead doing the work. Bezalel, whose name means in the shadow of God or the protection of God. Oholiab, whose name means tent of my father. These two men have been set apart by God and specially gifted by the Lord with these skills to do all that needs to be done. So they're going to do a lot of the work themselves, but they're also going to oversee the other men who are there to help with these projects. That's all we've got for today. So feel free again to, in the next couple of days, really review the layout, however you want to do that with your family, and just see how this design comes together.